Most women can read a man within seconds, his intentions, his confidence, his emotional state. But the Sigma male disrupts that instinct completely. His energy doesn't announce itself, his emotions don't leak, and his presence carries a depth that feels both magnetic and unreachable. He's the type of man who can sit in complete silence and still command the room, and that alone creates a mystery most people aren't equipped to decode.
What makes him even more difficult to read is not what he shows, but what he doesn't. He reveals nothing by accident, offers no predictable emotional cues, and never performs for approval. Women are used to men signaling interest, insecurity, or desire, yet the Sigma reveals none of these. Instead, he observes, listens, analyzes, and moves on his own internal timing. That creates a psychological tension. Is he uninterested? Or simply impossible to read? Most don't realize they're being quietly evaluated while trying to evaluate him.
If you want to understand the hidden psychology behind this rare type of man, why his silence confuses, why his energy pulls people in, and why most women can't decipher him, stay with Silent Wise. And before we dive deeper, hit subscribe, drop a comment with the word unreadable, and let's step into the mind most people never get the chance to truly see.
Most women can't read him because he reveals no emotional cues, leaving them unsure of what he feels or wants. Most women notice it immediately, the unnerving stillness in him, the way he speaks without revealing anything beneath the surface. It's not coldness and it's not disinterest, it's the intentional absence of emotional leakage. While others telegraph their feelings through tone, expression, or nervous shifts in energy, he offers no such signals. His face is calm, his voice steady, his posture unchanging. In a world where people communicate half their emotions through unconscious reactions, he becomes a silent void, a mirror that reflects nothing back. This lack of cues doesn't just confuse them, it creates a psychological vacuum that forces them to question the accuracy of their own intuition. The longer they're around him, the stronger the uncertainty grows. Women are used to reading micro-expressions, emotional shifts, and subtle signals that reveal desire, interest, discomfort, or hesitation. But with him, those cues don't exist. He listens without giving away whether he agrees or disagrees. He maintains eye contact without revealing whether he's moved or unmoved. He engages in conversation without hinting at what he's thinking beneath the words. And because he doesn't react in predictable patterns, every interpretation feels like guesswork. Instead of clarity, they find themselves navigating a fog, a space where they can't tell if he's intrigued, unimpressed, deeply focused, or entirely neutral. His silence forces them inward, making them analyze every detail, every word, every pause more intensely than they usually would. Eventually, they realize something deeper. It's not that he has no emotions, it's that he doesn't perform them. He doesn't use expression to gain connection, attention, or approval. He doesn't reveal vulnerability to earn sympathy or interest. And he doesn't signal attraction the way most men do. This absence of clues turns him into a psychological puzzle, a presence that feels both grounded and unreachable. Women aren't confused because he hides, they're confused because he refuses to translate his emotions into the social language everyone else relies on. And that quiet unpredictability makes him unforgettable.
His silence creates psychological ambiguity. Women project their own assumptions onto him.
His silence doesn't just leave a gap in conversation, it creates an open canvas where assumptions, fantasies, and fears begin to paint themselves. When he doesn't reveal what he thinks or feels, women instinctively start filling the void with their own interpretations. Some imagine he's confident, others think he's mysterious, a few assume he's uninterested, all because he gives them nothing concrete to work with. His quiet becomes a psychological mirror, reflecting not his inner world, but theirs. And the ambiguity he creates isn't accidental, It's the natural result of someone who speaks only when necessary and never performs emotion to satisfy expectations.
Instead of explaining himself, he lets silence hold its shape, watching how people respond to the unknown.
Over time, that ambiguity becomes a catalyst for projection. Women accustomed to reading men quickly suddenly find themselves guessing.
A simple glance becomes a question.
A neutral expression becomes a puzzle.
A calm presence becomes a story they write in their own minds. His silence is not emptiness. It's a pressure that forces people to interpret rather than observe.
And because he doesn't correct their assumptions, each woman forms her own version of him. The dangerous one, the aloof one, the deep one, the unavailable one, the highly intelligent one. They aren't seeing him. They're seeing themselves reflected through him.
This projection creates a powerful emotional pull because uncertainty amplifies intrigue, and intrigue pulls attention without him lifting a finger. Eventually, they realize the truth. His silence is not a strategy, but a natural state of being for someone who doesn't depend on external validation. He doesn't clarify misunderstandings, doesn't rush to prove himself, and doesn't shape his image to match what others want. And because he refuses to define himself for them, they define him for themselves. In that ambiguity lies his quiet influence. He becomes whatever their mind fears, wants, or wonders about. And this psychological ambiguity makes him unforgettable, even long after he's walked away. He shows interest through subtle actions, not obvious signals, making his intentions hard to identify.
A Sigma male never announces interest the way most men do.
There are no grand gestures, no constant compliments, no predictable signs of pursuit.
Instead, his attraction hides in the smallest details, the way he remembers something she mentioned once, the way he positions himself close enough to listen but not enough to draw attention, the way his eyes linger just a fraction longer than necessary before he looks away.
These microsignals are quiet, almost invisible to the untrained eye, and that is exactly why most women can't decode him.
He doesn't flirt to impress, he observes to understand. His interest feels more like a shift in energy than an action, more like gravity than conversation.
And because nothing is explicit, women find themselves wondering, is he interested? Or just naturally attentive?
His subtlety creates a unique tension, a slow psychological burn that pulls her curiosity deeper.
He won't text constantly, but when he does, it holds intention. He won't chase, but he will show up in meaningful moments.
He won't compliment her appearance, but he'll notice changes no one else comments on.
His version of interest is selective and precise, not scattered or needy.
Women who expect loud affection miss the quiet way he leans in when she speaks, or how his tone softens only for her, or how he shields her from discomfort without drawing attention to it.
These actions require awareness to notice, and most people are too distracted by surface-level signals to catch them.
His interest is present, but never declared, like a secret written between the lines.
Eventually, she realizes that his subtlety isn't uncertainty, it's intention. He reveals interest only where he feels genuine connection, and even then, he keeps it controlled. He wants to understand her before choosing her. He wants to read her depth before revealing his own. And because he never gives obvious signs, a woman learns his interest not through what he says, but through how he behaves. This makes his attention rare, valuable, and difficult to interpret. And that mystery becomes the very thing that draws her closer, even when she can't fully explain why. He stays calm and unreadable, even in emotional situations, breaking the patterns women rely on to understand men.
Women are used to reading men through emotional cues, raised voices, nervous shifts, frustrated expressions, defensive reactions. But a Sigma male doesn't move inside that predictable emotional language. When tension rises, he becomes quieter.
When emotions intensify, he grows more controlled.
When someone tries to provoke him, he refuses to give them the reaction they expect. His calm is not coldness, it's mastery. It's the result of a mind trained to process internally instead of erupting outward.
And because he doesn't display the usual signs of anger, jealousy, confusion, or excitement, women suddenly find themselves without a map. His face stays still.
His voice remains steady. His body language gives nothing away.
This emotional neutrality disrupts everything they assumed they understood about a man's reactions.
What makes him even more unreadable is how he processes emotion. He doesn't suppress, he analyzes.
In the middle of an emotional moment, he is observing the situation like a strategist. What triggered this? What patterns are repeating? Who is revealing their truth? He sees the emotional landscape clearly, while others are blinded by intensity.
And because he stays centered, women often can't tell whether he is deeply affected or completely untouched.
His silence becomes a mirror that reflects their own emotions back at them, forcing them to confront their feelings without his guidance.
It's disarming, but also magnetic.
Many women interpret this calm as mystery, power, or emotional depth because they can sense he feels more than he shows, yet he refuses to let those feelings control him.
Over time, they realize his unreadability isn't emotional distance, it's emotional discipline. He won't explode to make a point. He won't panic to earn sympathy. He won't overshare to lighten tension. Instead, he waits, listens, and chooses his words with careful intention. This breaks the emotional rhythms women rely on to understand, assess, or predict a man's state of mind. And that unpredictability draws them in even deeper. Because when a man can remain calm in chaos, composed in conflict, and centered in intensity, he becomes someone they want to understand, even if they can't. He evaluates before he engages, making women feel like they are being observed instead of the other way around. A Sigma male never rushes into interaction, not out of insecurity, but out of intention. From the moment he steps into a room, he's scanning the emotional landscape, reading subtle cues, and analyzing the motivations of everyone present. So, when a woman approaches him, she quickly realizes something unusual is happening. He's not reacting to her energy, he's studying it. His eyes hold steady, quiet, perceptive. His posture stays relaxed but alert. He listens before he speaks, measures before he reveals, and evaluates before he engages. And this reversal of the usual dynamic flips the psychological script. Instead of her assessing his interest, she feels like she is the one being understood, decoded, and quietly weighed. It's not judgment, it's discernment. He wants to know who she is beyond the surface before he decides whether she deserves access to his inner world. This evaluation isn't cold or detached, it's deliberate. A Sigma male observes patterns, how she speaks about others, how she reacts when challenged, how authentic or performative her presence feels. Women sense this, even if they can't articulate it. His silence stops being silence. It becomes attention. His stillness becomes pressure. His eye contact becomes a test. And the more she realizes he is analyzing her intentions, not trying to win her attention, the more the power dynamic shifts. She starts to wonder what he sees, what he's thinking, what he's picking up that she didn't intend to show. Most men seek approval. A Sigma seeks truth. Most men try to impress. A Sigma tries to understand. And this difference is felt instantly. What unsettles and attracts women is that he doesn't initiate from emotion or desire. He initiates from clarity. Before he engages, he has already determined whether the connection is genuine or a distraction. His evaluation protects his peace, but it also creates an aura of depth and mystery. A woman feels like she has stepped into a psychological spotlight, one she didn't expect, one she cannot control. And because she cannot predict his next move, cannot read his intentions, cannot decide if he's interested or simply curious, his presence becomes unforgettable. His silence becomes gravity. His discernment becomes intrigue. And without saying a word, he changes the entire dynamic. She becomes the one hoping he chooses to step closer. His independence removes the usual signs of attachment or pursuit, confusing those who expect validation. A Sigma male's independence is not an act, not a strategy, and not a performance. It's simply who he is. And because he moves through the world without needing reassurance, attention, or emotional approval, people who rely on those cues quickly lose their footing around him. When a woman expects pursuit, he offers patience. When she expects instant emotional engagement, he offers calm neutrality. When she expects a man to rush in with interest, he simply observes, steady and self-contained. This absence of predictable signals creates a psychological vacuum. She can't measure his level of interest. She can't decode his intentions. She can't tell whether he's drawn to her or simply being polite. And the more she watches him move within his own orbit, untouched by the pressure to impress or chase, the more she realizes she is dealing with a man whose emotional center is not swayed by anyone's expectations. This independence isn't coldness, it's sovereignty. He doesn't attach quickly because attachment requires alignment, not proximity. He doesn't pursue immediately because pursuit requires certainty, not impulse. And he doesn't validate others for the sake of making them feel secure. Instead, he lives with a level of emotional discipline that makes his presence feel unpredictable, not out of chaos, but out of self-possession. When someone expects him to lean in, he steps back to see the truth. When they expect him to follow, he stands still to watch their intentions reveal themselves. His detachment becomes clarification. Those who seek control grow frustrated. Those who seek validation grow confused. And those who seek authenticity grow intrigued. He disrupts the unspoken scripts people rely on simply by refusing to play them. What truly unsettles others, especially women, is that his independence isn't a shield, it's a filter. If someone pulls away, he lets them. If someone tests him, he doesn't react. If someone waits for him to chase, he doesn't move. Not because he lacks interest, but because he refuses to build connections on insecurity, pressure, or need. His independence removes every shortcut people use to measure romantic or emotional progress. And in that silence, in that absence of pursuit, something powerful happens. People begin to question their own patterns, not his. His lack of validation becomes its own gravity, pulling the truth out of everyone around him. And without trying, without changing, without performing, he becomes the mystery they cannot solve, and the presence they cannot forget. His depth and self-control create a mystery that most women misinterpret as distance, disinterest, or emotional complexity.
A Sigma male's depth is not loud, dramatic, or easily visible. It lives in the quiet decisions he makes, the thoughts he never verbalizes, and the emotional discipline that guides his every move.
Most women are used to reading men through familiar cues, excitement, pursuit, compliments, impulsive reactions.
But the Sigma offers none of these. He maintains an inner stillness that reveals nothing and suggests everything.
His silence is not coldness, but introspection. His self-control is not detachment, but measured intention.
Yet to anyone watching from the outside, that restraint becomes a riddle.
They misinterpret his calm as emotional distance.
They confuse his thinking pauses as hesitation.
They see his quiet interest and assume disinterest.
His depth is vast, but invisible to those who only understand surface-level signals, which is why he becomes a puzzle most women fail to interpret correctly.
In emotional moments, he doesn't rush to respond.
He weighs the truth behind his feelings before expressing even a fraction of them.
This restraint creates an aura of unpredictability. He does not overreact, he does not overshare, and he does not let his emotions be read like open pages. Women expecting immediate emotional transparency find themselves disoriented.
They wonder why their usual intuition doesn't work on him.
They feel like they are trying to read a locked journal with missing pages.
And the more composed he remains, the more assumptions rise. Is he hiding something? Is he uninterested?
Is he too complicated? None of these are accurate.
His depth simply operates on a frequency that requires patience, observation, and emotional intelligence to understand, something most people never practice deeply enough to align with his rhythm.
What truly confuses women is that beneath his calm exterior, he feels everything, but he refuses to let emotions drive his behavior. He doesn't get swept up in intensity, doesn't lose control in passion, and doesn't reveal vulnerabilities to anyone who hasn't earned access. This level of emotional sovereignty makes him appear mysterious, even aloof. But the reality is far more grounded. He knows the value of privacy, the weight of emotional investment, and the danger of giving too much to the wrong person. Women misinterpret his depth because they rarely encounter a man who thinks before he feels before he speaks, and speaks only when it matters. And by the time they realize the truth, that his calm is connection, his silence is emotion, and his mystery is intention, he has already revealed more than most people ever notice. In the end, understanding a Sigma male isn't about decoding his silence, it's about recognizing the depth behind it. Most people judge what they cannot read, but the Sigma lives beyond assumptions, beyond expectations, and beyond the emotional shortcuts the world relies on.
If his mystery pulled you in, if his psychology made you think differently about yourself or the people around you, then stay with us, because this journey into the Sigma mind is only beginning.
Subscribe to Silent Wise, drop a comment with the word unreadable, and tell me which part of today's insight hit you hardest. Your voice builds this community, and your presence shapes the next video. Let's keep going deeper, quietly, intelligently, and unapologetically.